Are you muted?
Yes, thank you. The Rebbe Rashab tasks a certain chassid to travel around to all the colonias, which means the colonies, small Jewish farm settlements, and to all these places didn't always have a minyan, they didn't always have a shul or a cheder, and to encourage, Yiddishkeit, spread Yiddishkeit in every one of these colonias, Jewish settlement colonies. And he told them, if you cannot daven with a minyan in the place where you are, you should try to daven at least with a mezuzah with three people. With three people together. So when one benches, we do benching. We do Rabbi benching, right? Which means everyone gather together. Gentlemen, let us say the blessings. Or havlam v'nivrech, gentlemen, let us gather together and bless Hashem. The mitzvah to bless Hashem after you eat. And everybody answers back, Yehi Shem Hashem mevarach me'ata v'ad olam. May Hashem's name be blessed forever and ever. And then we say, Birshus Marana v'Rabbanan v'Rabbaisai, with the permission of everybody gathered here, esteemed gentlemen, Nevarech Shachanu Mishalai. Let us bless Hashem, whom we have eaten from his bounty. And everyone answers, Baruch Shachanu Mishalai v'tu v'chinu. Let us bless Hashem, whom we have eaten from his bounty. Without a minyan, without 10 people, you don't say the word Elokeinu, our God. But if you have 10 people present, you say Nevarech Elokeinu, bless our God, and you mention Hashem's name, whom we have eaten from his bounty. Everyone answers, Baruch Elokeinu Shachanu Mishalo. Blessed is Hashem. 23b, if you have an art scroll, it'll be 23b3. So you need at least 10 people benching in order to say Baruch Elokeinu, blessed our God. The Gemara Mesechta brachas, where this is based off of, actually says that there's certain other brachas and blessings that you say if you have more people, if you're benching with a crowd of 1,000 or 600,000. I don't know if that ever happened yet. It's 600,000 Jewish people together ate a meal together and benched together. But there's a special bracha, a special blessing. There is a special blessing to say when you do see 600,000 Jews together, which is Chacham Harazim. When you see 600,000 Jews together, Shem who knows the secrets, because every Jew is different. That I don't know if has ever happened yet since the Churban destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. We've definitely gotten pretty close a few times.
Right after the Daf Yomi at the
And that was only about 90,000 Jews.
oh,
And it wasn't even probably 85,000 Jews. There was protests in Washington with about 250,000 Jews together before the Natkut in Israel. They were, I think, before the 2005, when the expulsion from Gaza, I think there were 300,000 Jewish people gathered together. Yes, there have been very large gatherings. I don't know if there's ever been 600,000 Jews together at once. And if there is, there's a special bracha blessing to make, as well as a special blessing for when you have a mezuzah of that size. But generally, the halacha is, bringing up the Rambam on the screen, if 10 or more people ate together, you mention Hashem's name when you do the zimun. What is implied? That we say, let us bless our God of whose bounty we have eaten. The Rambam adds a letter lamed because the Gemara has a lamed. However, we do not add a lamed. The Shulchan Aruch brings down that the lamed is actually in Hebrew grammar, according to Diktuk, the lamed does not fit in there. So we say Baruch Elokeinu, blessed our God, not to our God, but blessed God directly. And everyone answers Baruch Elokeinu Shalchanu Mishaloi v'tu v'chayinu. And then you begin to have Birchas Hamazon, the blessing of benching. And what do you say when you receive a package in your mail? Which blessing? Birchas Amazon.
and you can also see another bracha with the 7 bills. A bracha Shem is 7.
And when it's not a bill, you say thank God, Derek. Right, so that is the halacha. how do you know you need at least 10 people to mention Hashem's name by Birchas Hamazon, by a zimun, by leading the benching? And don't think it's such a small thing to lead the benching. The Chaim Sofer, Ramesh Sofer, the story of him, that he one time was at a simcha and he offered someone to lead the benching. The person says, "Yeah, I'll lead it. It's not a big deal." Some Sofer told him, it's a very big deal, and it says in certain svarim that it's a value of 10 gold coins you have to pay if somebody steals if someone leads a benching when someone else is supposed to do it. You have to pay him 10 gold coins. He says, "Oh, Rebbe, for sure, I'll sell the chance to lead the zimun for 10 gold coins." Chaim Sofer took out 10 gold florins and he paid him. And the Chaim Sofer led the benching, led the zimun. So it's a very special thing to lead the zimun. How do you know you need at least 10 people? Says the Gemara, even the Baila Maamar. Nevarech lelakenu, since one is required to say, let us bless Hashem. Batzir me'asara, if you have less than 10 people, lav oirach ara. It is not derech eretz. It is not proper conduct to bless Hashem with Hashem's name with less than 10 people, keeping with the dignity due to Hashem's name. Whenever we say Hashem's name in public, we should have at least 10 people there. Somebody mentioned yesterday, and I've been there once, and I have to say I was actually part of that minyan. I wasn't the one deciding that when there is only 9 adults, 9 men present, and there's Aron Kodesh, that they open the Aron Kodesh and count it as a minyan. I have seen that. I've been in a room when they've done that. Perhaps there is sources that I'm not aware for it, but in general, it doesn't really seem to be the existent way of going.
I think it may have been actually more in the deeds of the Rishonim, some people doing it.
Correct. So benching needs 10 people to say Nevarach Elokim. We're going to go on now to real estate appraisal. How do you appraise land? So let's go have a look over here. Hakarka is Tisha v'Koyin. If one consecrates land to the Beis Hamikdash, you have to have it appraised by 10 people, 10 Jews, adults. One of them must be a Kohen. What is this consecration of land? I'll bring up a little bit here on the screen. Where is it? Yes, I can X out of.
Actually, we did it a couple of years ago for the cemetery at in Homewood.
To dedicate a cemetery.
Yeah,
You have a minyan, and there's no special bracha to say, correct?
I don't think so. I wasn't there.
Right there. Saying I've been at a place where I've been part of a minyan to dedicate a cemetery, and you're essentially saying many kapitlach of Tehillim, and you have to go around all 4 corners, I think 7 times, and each of the 7 corners you say certain chapters of Tehillim and give tzedakah. And each of the 7 times you give tzedakah to a different cause. One has to be for orphans, one has to be for kala, one has to be for poor people, and one has to be for learning Torah. And so you end up saying the same chapters of Tehillim, I think 28 times. It was very hard to keep up. Karkais. So here on the screen, I brought up just a text of what it actually is. If a person dedicates an object to the Beis Hamikdash, and the Beis Hamikdash has no benefit from it, correct? So, you just like Havdil, a bank repossesses, someone didn't pay the mortgage, a bank takes a house. The bank sells a house at a loss because a bank is not into the real estate business. So they sell a house for 80% of the value. It's called a foreclosure. The Beis Hamikdash is not into the real estate business. It's not into the hiring worker business. So if someone dedicates a piece of land to the Beis Hamikdash, there's no need for them to own the piece of land, and they sell it. And the person who dedicates the land is the one who buys it back. either they buy back directly, and they add a little bit of a gratuity, about 20% extra, or it could be sold to someone else if they can't afford to buy it back. Who determines the worth, the value of the property? They didn't have the county going around assessing everyone's property tax, how much it's worth. So you have to bring on a panel of experts, right? The Kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash would gather together a panel of experts who was their expertise to determine how much a land was worth. Until the land is bought from the Beis HaMikdash, it is holy. No one could touch it. If you steal from it, to use something on it, you have to, you could be over a law, you can get malchus. Once it's redeemed from the Beis HaMikdash, it its value. If someone that says dedicated, I have a beautiful car, a Bentley, I want to dedicate it to the Beis HaMikdash. So you need 3 people to assess the value of an object. But if it's land or a person, which means a servant, then you have to have 10 people. And one of them in each of these situations, whether it's 3 people or 10 people who are assessing it, one of them have to be a Kohen. Why does one of them have to be a Kohen? Why do you need 10 people? So this, the Gemara will now explain all of that. It said the famous line of a real estate agent. How do they go to sleep at night? They lie on one side, and then they lie on the other side. If you understand, they lie on both sides. Correct? They say the agent for both sides. So you can't have just one person doing it. Who knows what they're going to do? And when it comes to karka, you have to have a bezin of 3 people at least to have everybody accountable. You need at least 3 people. When it comes to land, you have to have at least 10 people. There's a famous line that there was a real estate agent getting married. So they asked the Kollel, they asked the bride, tell me something about your chassan, your groom to be. And he says, look, he's such a special person. Look at the diamond ring that he sold me. Right? So in order to, the Torah is not like this. We're not into lies, trying to cheat people, Hektish always has, the Beis HaMikdash always has the upper hand. And you need to have 10 people. Why 10 people? So let's look at let's look at what the Torah has to say. When a appraisal of land, which belongs to the Beis HaMikdash, to see how much it is worth, in order to know how much to sell it for, has to be assessed by 10 people. And one of the 10 people have to be a Kohen, Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Karp. And if you have a person who pledge their own value to the Beis HaMikdash, also they must be assessed by 10 people, how much their value is. You have 2 different types of values of people. One is called the Erech, a set value, which everyone, according to their age and according to their gender, that's how much they pay. So a child until this age, if it's male or female, is one amount. If they're an adult till the age of 60 is another amount. And if they're adult over 60, it's another amount. And what's interesting is the value of a man over 60 goes down a lot more than the value of a woman over 60. It says because when a man gets old, it says pacha bebesa, you have trouble in the house. When a woman gets old, it says you have sima, a treasure in the house. That's a Rashi over there on. But
just ask your wife. She'll tell me.
She'll tell you very well. Yes. Amar Shmuel. Why do I says Reb Shmuel? Why do I need 10 people to estimate and appraise the land? For the Beis HaMikdash, how much the value is? Because Asara Kohanim Kisuvim Baparsha. At the end of Chumash Vayikra, the very last parsha, which many people, when it comes to that aliyah, they almost sort of gloss over it, whether they're in shul or whether they're learning chitas, because this Bahar B'Chukoisai, the majority of years, not this year, but it's a leap year, the majority of years, it's a double parsha, and it's a very long parsha. And these halachas are no longer applicable in the physical sense of the word, just lessons from it we can learn. And therefore, and it's very quick, he goes through everything in 2 or 3 psukim, and many people sort of just go over it very quickly. They learn it very quickly on Shabbos afternoon when they're trying to finish a long chumash, or just waiting for the last pasuk where it says, where we say chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek, the end of Chumash Vayikra. The psukim, the verses which discuss about a land, how to appraise land, it's here in Shishi says, if a person dedicates a field to Hashem, which is not a field which he received as an inheritance back from the early settlers when the Jews first came into Eretz Yisrael, then the priest shall reckon to him the worth of the value, and give the value to Hashem. It says, how many times it says a priest? HaKohen. But if you go throughout the entire paragraph, entire chapter, let's say, which talks about consecrating objects, people, values of people, value of objects to Hashem, you have the word kohen altogether 10 times. Altogether. So starting off chapter Pasuk Ches, you keep count. It says, if a person is poor and he cannot do the value, and he should be valued in front of the kohen has to value him according to how much he could afford. The kohen values him. So you have 3 times in Pasuk Ches over here the word HaKohen. Then you have Pasuk Yud Aleph Yud Beis, says if a person consecrates an animal, the animal is not kosher animal, or it's an animal that can't be brought, a deer, he can't be bringing it on the base of Mikdash. So then he brings it in front of the Kohen, that's number 4, and verse 12, it says, again, the Kohen has to estimate how much it is. The Kohen estimates it. So another 2 times in verse 12. So then you get 6 times. Then in verse 14, is if a person consecrates his house, right? So verse 14, the Kohen has to estimate it. In verse 18, it says once again, if a person consecrates a field, verse 18, the Kohen has to estimate it. In verse 23, again, it says, if a person consecrates a different type of field, it uses the word Kohen. You keeping count so far?
Oh, that's good.
Okay, altogether it says 10 times the word Kohen. There's an 11th time over here in verse 21, which says the word Kohen, but it's not counted because, and that's talking about the Kohen shall keep the proceeds. I mean, it goes to the base of Mikdash and supports a Kohanim. But we're talking about a Kohen estimating uses the word Kohen 10 times. That's a Tosfos Yom Tov, which is actually my ancestor. And Tosfos Yom Tov, this is how he makes the count.
Oh, we're cousins.
You don't need an 11th person, like we see many other times. Because what happens if 5 people say one value and 5 people say the other value? So you need to have a 11th person to decide. So why don't you have an 11th person? So there's several answers given, but one of them is that it's Gzeres HaKasov. It's a decree from the Torah to have 10 people. All right, and that's the gist of all the answers. That basically you need 10 people. If a Torah doesn't tell you an amount, so then you see, is it 10, is it more, is it less? When it comes to making a new month, a Bezdin, we have different things that we learn. There's one Achron who says on the opposite. Really, you need 11 people in order to have it equal.
That's what you said, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Let's continue. another answer given is that the price they give is a starting price.
Hmm.
But if anyone wants to pay more, they can pay more. It's not like a regular Beis Din, which says you owe him this amount of money. It's like they have to get together to make a starting price. So it's not really like a judgment in the typical sense of the word. Right. So therefore, since it says the word Kohen 10 times, we learn that when it comes to redeeming a field, you need to have 10 people, and why does one of them have to be a Kohen? You should have 10 Kohanim. So Gemara explains, Chav legufei, v'chav l'meutei, v'idach havimiyat acharmiyat, v'hamiyat acharmiyat al Rabbi. It's Tisher Sa'elim echad Kohen. Uses a very interesting terminology, and I brought up here on the screen the original source of this. You know, it says two negatives make a positive.
Yeah, in English, yeah.
Right? That's probably the easiest way of visualizing this. So when you say not this, that means this and not this. When you say not this, not that, it means you come to include that thing. For example, the typical example here is this is the end of Valoscha, you're right. The end of Valoscha. It says Moshe and Aaron, Aaron and Miriam, the two of them, spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu, and spoke Lashon Hara, in the sense of the word that, why did he separate from his wife, from Tzipora? Because Hashem appeared to him. Hashem appeared to us as well. And the words used by Aaron and Miriam is Harak Ach. Only, not to Moshe, only is excluding, and Ach is also excluding. When you have one exclusion after another exclusion, it comes to include something else. So you have the word Kohen coming to exclude a non-Kohen, but non-Kohen, but then you say the word Kohen again. You already excluded non-Kohanim. So whenever you have such a thing, repetition of the word Kohen is not excluding non-Kohanim, rather it's including it. So first we know you need a Kohen. Now we know you need another person, and it says the word Kohen, that means it doesn't have to be a Kohen. And now another person, and it says the word Kohen, it means not a Kohen. So the first of the 10 mentions of the word Kohen is coming to include a Kohen, and the next 9 are coming to include someone else who will assist the Kohen. So therefore you need 1 Kohen and 9 non-Kohanim who are all experts in real estate and appraisal to appraise the land. Over there, Moshe's siblings, Aaron and Miriam, said, it is not only to Moshe Hashem spoke. What does that mean? Hashem also spoke to Aaron and Miriam, and they're saying, Hashem spoke to us, and we did not have to separate from our spouses. And Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem speaks to him too, and he does have to. So here we see that a negative, an exclusion after exclusion, in the Torah is coming to include. Says the Gemara, maybe you need 5 Kohanim and 5 Yisraelim, instead of saying 1 Kohen and 9 Yisraelim, because once again, we have 10 times it says the word Kohen. So the first one comes, says to include a Kohen. The second one comes to exclude, you don't need a Kohen. But when it appears a third time, maybe it's starting to say a new thing. Instead of adding on to the previous one, maybe it's saying that the third time you need another Kohen, and the fourth one says it doesn't have to be a Kohen. But let's say the third appearance of the word Kohen is an independent phrase, and that only a Kohen could appraise. And the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. So therefore you have, as Rashi explains, 5 times the word Kohen to say that we need a Kohen to appraise the property, and 5 times the word Kohen to say also a non-Kohen is okay. So why do we need? So why does the Mishnah say that we learn from here that it's 1 Kohen and not 9 non-Kohanim? Maybe to appraise land you need 5 Kohanim and 5 non-Kohanim. Or the whole learning, the whole way we know you can have a non-Kohen is from the word Kohen. So at least have equal Kohanim and non-Kohanim. And the Gemara answers off. Kasha. Indeed, it's a question.
Yeah.
It has not been, we don't have a sufficient way of defending the derivative, the scriptural derivative, the Torah learning, the Torah limud that we learned from here. We don't have a way of defending it. And at the end of the day, it has to boil down to the fact that we have a Messiah comes back from Moshe Rabbeinu that you need one Kohen and 9 non-Kohanim. But at least, I mean, if you want only Kohanim, I think it's fine. But at least one Kohen has to be part of the 10. And that is how it paskins, how it's ruled the halacha, that if you have a land that has to be estimated, you need at least, for the Beis HaMikdash, you have to have at least 10 people, and a kohen has to be at least one of the 10. I have a friend of mine who's a shliach somewhere, and someone came up to him with a very unique donation to the Chabad house, which he bought. Detroit has a lot of neighborhoods which are abandoned, and they sell the houses there for very, very cheap, $1, $1,000. That's how cheap they sell the houses for. But you have to cut the entire house yourself. A lot of them have tax liens. So this person wanted to give a donation to the Chabad house of a house in Detroit, and you could sell it and make money off it. And after investigating the whole thing, he said it wasn't worth it for him, because you have to take care of the tax liens, and so he ended up, what happened was, he says, I'll accept and condition take care of all the tax liens. And then it was sold for like $5,000. And he says the amount of hours they had to invest in it, probably could have done another job and earned more, so you need professionals to see, could they accept this property? How much is the property value worth? So you need professionals. It's not just so simple. I'm just going to get a tax break and and donate something to the Beis HaMikdash. It's a little bit more involved than that. As the Gemara continues with Adam Kayotze Behem, a person who is assessed and donated to the Beis HaMikdash is similar to land. That if land was donated to the Beis HaMikdash, you need 10 people to assess the value. In a similar sense, if a person is donated to the Beis HaMikdash, I'm donating my value to the Beis HaMikdash, you need 10 people to assess the value of the person, and one of them has to be a Kohen. Amar Rabbi Abahu says, Rabbi Abahu, Adam mi Kaddish. Gemara asked the question, Adam mi Kaddish before Amar. Can a person become consecrated? It's maybe the original human trafficking. Could he say, you belong, I become now consecrated, I am now dedicated, I'm property of the Beis HaMikdash? Could a person legally be sanctified that he should need to be appraised? And then you have to redeem him? What is it meant by our Mishnah that a person is appraised by 10 people? The person is consecrated to the Beis HaMikdash. Amar Rabbi says Rabbi, V'omer dami alai. If someone says my worth of my net worth, not my net worth, my worth of how much I am giving to the Beis HaMikdash. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Ha'omer dami alai. If a person says, I am consecrating I'm donating to the Beis HaMikdash my monetary value. So the actual market value, if I was to be sold on the market, how much I would be worth, and I am donating that amount to the Beis HaMikdash. Shamin oisai ke'eved. So then you assess him how much he would be sold if he would be a slave. A slave in the market, in Western societies, Baruch Hashem, slavery in the typical sense of the word is no longer existent, but still exists in many, many places in the world. And so if somebody was sold as a slave, then what would the value be? And it depends how strong they are, what talents they are. If a person he is very smart, or is a very good singer. So if God forbid they're missing a hand, they can still sing, so their talent is still there. If a person is a very good carpenter and they lose their voice, they can still build. But the other way around, if they're missing their hand, their value goes down. And it's all assessed according to the value, how much a person would be worth if they would be sold as a slave. The Eved Iskash Lakarkais, and the halacha of a slave and the halacha of property is the same in many respects. Because in the Torah, it places the two of them together. It says it places a non-Jewish slave is legally likened to land. As it is written, you shall take, if you have a Jewish slave, a Jewish servant, which he's a servant, if he couldn't pay back what he stole, he's sold as a servant. Halachos, you have to treat them very humanely, and then to pay back what they stole. But they have a time limit when they go free, either 7 years or to the Yovel, the 50th Jubilee year. A non-Jewish slave was bought by a Jewish person, so then they don't have a end date. Either they could escape. If they escape, they have the halacha to become Jewish, or they, or whatever, or they redeem themselves, but they would not have the end date. And it says, and if you shall hold them as a heritage for your children, meaning after somebody passes away, any servants from the house continue on to the children. The word achuzah means generally land, just like property goes to, if a person passes away, it goes to their descendants, to their children. So too, a servant goes to their children. So the halachas, the laws are the same when it comes to property and person. So so if you want to estimate the value of a human being, of a person, how much they would be sold as a slave, would be the same as estimating the value of a property if to be sold on the market. And therefore, you need 10 people, and one of them have to be a kohen. So, we'll summarize a little bit over here. This is a beautiful activity page. It says Daf Yomi for kids. Torah says, "V'nikdashti b'serch b'nei Yisrael." I will be consecrated among the Jewish people. From there, we learn that you need 10 people whenever you say Hashem's name in public. Here are some examples of things I need a minyan. One is to be a chazan. One is for the Reches Kohanim. One is to read the Torah. You need at least 10 men present for Torah reading. For the Haftarah, you need 10 men to be present. To bench, and in the Zimun, in the grace after meals, to say Hashem's name, you need at least 10 people. For the Sheva Brachos, you need at least 10 people, although there is an opinion that for the very last bracha, the last blessing, you don't need a minyan. The Asher Bara Sasan V'Simcha. The other blessings, you do need a minyan. So if, for example, you got married without a minyan, could the marriage still be valid? And it seems halachically it still could be valid, but you cannot make the Sheva Brachos. We know the story of the Rebbe's father, that one time he received a knock on the door in the middle of the night in the Petrovsk, and it was a person, a woman walked in and said that my son is a very high communist official, very high, high up in the party. He's getting married, and I told him I'm not going to go to his wedding unless he first gets married according to halacha. And my son agreed, but he said the only one who could do it, the only person I trust to do it, he said it will be very dangerous for it to be found out that I got married in a Jewish way, in a halachic way, and not just I'll lose my position in the party, but I'll lose my freedom as well, and I'll be having a Arctic vacation long term. Only the rabbi of Dneipro Petrovsk could do it. So he says, we arrived to the city tonight, and 1 hour, my son and my and his kalo, and it will both arrive here at your house. And could you please do the wedding? And he says, what do you think he said? Of course. Where are you going to get a minyan in the middle of the night? And especially of trustworthy people. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchok went around and had a minyan of very close, trustworthy people. But he had only 8 people gathered, plus the chassan, who showed up. But there were only 9 people with the chassan. The chassan showed up, and the kala, both of their faces were completely covered. Not completely covered. Now, in the building, there was one Jew who lived in the building. His job was to be the superintendent of the building, and reason why he's put in this building was to keep watch over the Rabbi Levi Yitzchok's house, the Rebbe's father's parents' house, to see who was coming and who was going, and he would every week have to give a report exactly who came in and who came out of the house to the rabbi's house before the days of cameras. And he was Jewish, totally non-believing at all, but he was Jewish, and it was middle of the night, and they need one last person. So Rabbi Levi Yitzchok said to go and call him. Everyone was shocked. Him, of all people, dangerous as is. He says, yes, call him. And they called him. And he says, the rabbi wants you. He says, what is it? He says, we need you for a minyan. He says, me? Are you out of your mind? You want to get into more trouble? And he says, you for the minyan, we need 10 people. And anyways, he listened, and he was part of the minyan. And afterwards he left. And after that event, 2 of the people who were at this minyan came over to Rebbe Zanchana, the Rebbe's mother, and they took out their membership cards to the party, Communist Party, because that was the only way you're allowed to have any type of job whatsoever in Russia. And they told him, these cards are not ours; they belong to you, because this is not our party. A real party is a party of Schneerson. That's our real party. So, but what it does say is that actually, if you did not have a minyan at your wedding, you have 3 people, it's already could be considered to be a valid wedding. And you would say just the last of the Sheva Brachas. When you get a minyan together, then you do all Sheva Brachas, all 7 blessings together. All right. We're going to conclude, because tomorrow will be a Shiur by Rabbi Darren and Meir Hashem. Everyone here, everyone on Zoom, let's have a little quiz on this daf. How many aliyahs do we have in Yom Kippur? 5, 6, 7, machlokas.
You have 6.
Try again.
7.
Machlokas, I think, between 6 and 7, let's say. Correct. Right. Yom Tov shul starts late. Why does it start late? 1, because sleeping is eineg. It's a pleasure to sleep. Number 2, we need to do the meal of Yom Tov. Number 3, why not? Number 4, we can clean the night before. Number 5, everything is a machlokes, disagreement from all of the above.
You have to help your wife.
You have to help your wife. So number 2, correct. Mike is right. What do the 5? Your wife taught you well. What do the 5 people receiving aliyah on Yom Tov correspond to? The 5 people who are advisors to the king, the blessing of the Kohanim, the 5 days of the week that we work, or A and B, which is the 5 people who saw the king and the blessing of the Kohanim, or the blessing of the Kohanim and the 5 work days.
I would say A and B.
A and B. The second verse, which has 5 words, the blessing of Kohanim, plus the 5 advisors to the king, and you got it right. Maftir is counted among the 7 aliyahs, true or false? Or only if it has more than 10 psukim, or machlokes.
It is false.
False. Sorry, try again.
It is machlokes.
Machlokes, correct. The maftir must be at least 21 verses. True. Only if it's a complete subject, it doesn't have to be. If it's a translator, it could be less. Machlokes A and B, or B or C. Which is unless it's a complete subject, or unless there's a translator. I would say E. Oh, that's one I would say. What did you say?
E.
E? Correct. You got it right, Dobie. The blessing of the mourners requires 10 people. Are the mourners counted as one of the 10? Yes, no, maybe, we don't know, or there's a disagreement, yes or no?
No.
You say they do not. Got it right. Baruch Hashem. I think you're all excellent listeners. Okay. We will pause the Gemara over here. Tomorrow will be a shiur by Rabbi Darren. Amir Hashem. I don't know if we'll be continuing the laws of Shabbos or continuing on the parsha. And Amir Hashem.